Hey you guys, it's Peter, and welcome to my channel, Peter Watches TV, where I watch all the television shows, and then I come over here and I react to them, and then you guys let me know what you thought about them in the comment section below. And today, I am going to reluctantly talk about the first two episodes of Good American Family that just came out a couple days ago. So let me kind of give you a background story before I get into reacting to this new dramatization of the story of Natalia Grace. I started getting DMs about this new docudrama that was coming out probably 2 or 3 weeks ago. People asked me if I was going to watch this. I watched a trailer for it, and I was like, I don't know that I'm going to do this. I very rarely, like, when people send me shows to watch, for those of you that do not know, I have a new Instagram that's called Peter Watches TV. It's linked below. People send me all the time over there. And on my main Instagram account, people will leave comments in my videos and say, you should watch this. I always add it to my list of shows. If I look at a show and I'm like, oh, the show looks good, I'll add it to my list. So thank you guys for all the recommendations. Very rarely does anybody ever recommend a show to me that I'm like, no, I'm absolutely not watching this. I watched the trailer for this, and I mean, I was like, I don't know that I'm going to watch this. Like, I don't know that I can stomach this. I thought the trailer looked so horrible. I thought it was such a misrepresentation of Natalia Grace and the story of Natalia Grace. And I was like, I don't know that I'm going to do this. But I am such a believer that it is important to talk about the truth in the story, okay? And the negligence that has happened as a result of producers putting out the documentary, the writer, the director of Good American Family, this Hulu story. I think the re-traumatization of Natalia Grace and rewriting the story in a way that is victimizing what is now a grown woman, but at that time was an abused child, I think is disgusting. I think it's sick. And so for that reason, I was like, no, I am going to watch this. I am going to watch it, and I'm going to respond to it. And I even went into it when I started watching it last night, and I was like, you know what? If this is done well, and this is done fairly, and all that, then I will be fair about it. I will be objective. I got like 15 minutes into it, and I posted the poster on my Peter Watches TV Instagram. Let me pull it up for you really quick so I can tell you exactly what I posted on it. As I'm watching all of my shows, I will post something. Oh, maybe it's I guess it's not up here anymore. I posted, how is it not up here anymore when I just posted it last night? Hold on, let me look and see, because I got a lot of comments about this. Anyway, I posted something about this is the most disgusting show, and Natalia Grace deserves better. I was just really sad watching it. So if you don't know what I'm talking about, there's a new Hulu documentary, and it is called Good American Family. You know, I don't even have I don't even have the cast pulled up or anything like that, because in all honesty, I don't really care. I think that the director of the show, the writer of the show, the cast of the show, I think all of them should be ashamed and embarrassed to be part of this project. So let me just read you a little bit of it, because that's what we're here for. Overview. A couple adopts who they believe is an 8-year-old girl with a rare form of dwarfism, but questions soon arise concerning the actual identity of the adoptee. It's called Good American Family. The first 2 episodes are out, and it's on Hulu. And let me pull up the cast really quick. And the cast is Imogene Faith Reed, who plays Natalia Grace. It's really important. She is 27 years old, and at the time, she is playing a 7-year-old young girl, okay? A 27-year-old, we'll get to this in just a second, playing a 7-year-old girl. Ellen Pompey, who plays Christine Barnett, who they absolutely saint through this entire show. Christine Barnett has been proven in court documents and things like that to have been abusive to Natalia Grace, and they are sainting her in the show and completely rewriting it. Mark Duplass, who plays Michael Barnett. I mean, the whole casting of the show is just so bizarre and so off. I actually have quite a few notes, so I want to make sure that I follow my notes correctly before I get into this, because I don't want to miss anything. I was writing this as I was watching it last night. So I started this off by saying so many people asked me if I was going to watch this, and I was hesitant because the trailer was so disturbing. But I did end up watching it because I think it's important to keep the story correct. But I was also correct when I started watching it that the show is absolute and utter gutter trash. It's gutter trash. The show is horrible. It is absolutely horrible. And I started looking up some articles last night written about it, and I was really surprised. I mean, it was like, I think People on ET and a couple other articles. It wasn't People. People is completely biased. But there was a couple other like major articles were writing about it, and they were saying this show is doing no justice to the story of Natalia Grace. They didn't do their research well. They didn't know the case, and yet they're doing this dramatization. Not to mention they have major actors and producers co-signing this show. The fact that this show exists is so disturbing. I have watched so many dramatizations of shows, from the Gypsy Rose Blanchard story, which I feel like is fair to all parts of the story, to the show The Staircase with Toni Collette, which I thought was fantastically done. This is so disturbing what it does. It paints and vilifies Natalia Grace, who at the time the docudrama is happening is a 7-year-old girl. That has been documented, okay? In later documentaries, it has come out and said in the second and third part of the Natalia Grace documentaries, The Curious Case of Natalia Grace, it has been documented by dental records. She has now legal papers from the U.S. government that have aged her correctly. So to put out a docudrama and completely be negligent to all of that information that comes out and continue to perpetuate this story that Natalia Grace was actually a young woman who is portraying herself to be 7 years old, is re-traumatizing and re-victimizing and sensationalizing the story of Natalia Grace. People need to leave Natalia Grace alone and let her live her life. But it's also about the fact that Natalia Grace, it's come out in documentaries, has mental health issues, which I'm going to talk about in a second. The docudrama even insinuates some sexual relationship between her and Michael Barnett. They play into this, which if that were the case at the time, Natalia Grace would have been 7 years old. Michael Barnett was, I believe, in his 40s, which means that we are victim blaming a 7-year-old girl who is a victim of SA. We are indirectly blaming her in a docudrama, and these actors and actresses co-signed this, and the producers and the writers signed up for this and said this was okay. It is so disturbing to me that people are not taking more of an issue with this, that people aren't taking more of an issue with the documentary, that the question still stands, okay? That is Natalia Grace this horrible person? Is she this person? When I so believe that the reason why the look of society of looking down on Natalia Grace is solely because of her dwarfism. Because when you look at the picture and you look at the mental health issues that they discuss in the documentaries, because you have to have all the information to look at it correctly, and you look at all of that, the mental health diagnoses make sense alone. But we'll get into that in just a second. I want to get back to my notes. I have covered the documentaries extensively on almost all of my channels, and I have followed this case very, very closely. It began in Indianapolis. My mother-in-law used to live in the same neighborhood that the Barnetts lived in. The show is sick and disgusting, okay? Good American Family is sick and disgusting. It is a total exploitation of the life of Natalia Grace. I read an article, and it said that they were not in contact with any of the people that were involved in the case. They weren't involved with Natalia Grace. They weren't involved with Michael Barnett. They didn't talk to them. I don't know if they reached out to them. They said that they researched thousands and thousands of Facebook messages, of Facebook posts. I don't know if they ever watched the documentary because they got a lot wrong, and I'm going to get to it in just a second. I mean, they missed pivotal points of the story. It's a total exploitation of the life of Natalia Grace. It's a letdown of Natalia Grace as an abuse victim in our system. It makes me so sad watching this. They are fictionalizing and sensationalizing an abuse victim story to further victimize her and paint a negative picture of her by ignoring new evidence that has come out in the final documentary. And since then, an article that was done in People magazine and interviews that Natalia Grace has done since then. It's negligent to put a notice at the beginning of the show to say that it's fictionalized, knowing that people are going to take this as a true account. Just because you flash up something at the beginning of a docudrama doesn't give you creative license to go in and rewrite the entire story, okay? Anyway, they go in and they talk about how it's a fictionalized account of the events, that they spent thousands of hours, the writer and the director spent thousands of hours going over court cases and court documents and Facebook messages and all this stuff, right? But they obviously never watched the documentaries. They've never obviously watched any footage of Natalia Grace, because one of the first things that I noticed they got wrong are her shoes, okay? Now, this is important because when you're writing and fictionalizing a story, you might want to get a few things right? Like, if you're going to do the story and you're going to do it so incorrectly, that you're going to paint a picture of an abuse victim in a further way, and you're going to use her legal name that is out there as Natalia Grace. If you're going to do a docudrama and change the names of all the people that are involved in it, that's one thing. But to base this off the life of Natalia Grace, who's a living human being out there, who has been victimized and had her life exploited enough, to further do that in a docudrama, and to not even get the shoes right, shows what idiots you are to even put this show out there, or any of the actors or actresses, how they have co-signed the abuse that has happened to Natalia Grace is disgusting, okay? I start watching this, and they are showing her run on the beach in sneakers, okay? Then they show her in the car, and she has felt shoes on, all right? Then they're showing her bedroom, and she has sneakers underneath her shoe, all right? They show Christine Barnett getting up on these cabinets, looking at drawers that she couldn't even reach if she were on a tall ladder, all right? They show all of this in there. Well, one of the first things that you would ever notice, if you ever watched even 5 minutes of the documentary, is that from the time that they adopted Natalia Grace, she had specialized shoes. She had specialized shoes that she has worn in every documentary, and every footage, and every photo that has ever been taken of Natalia Grace. She has specialized shoes, all right? But they couldn't even get that right, all right? So, of course, they're not going to go in and talk about the fact that in the last documentary, it came out that she was diagnosed with RAD, which is reactive attachment disorder, all right? So now we're sensationalizing and putting down a victim of mental health diagnoses, okay? Based on events that she could not control. So for those of you that do not know what reactive attachment disorder is, and I've talked about this in several of my videos, they talk about it heavily. A therapist talks about it in the third documentary. The family that she's living with now, the DePauls, talk about reactive attachment disorder. Reactive attachment disorder, RAD, is a complex childhood psychiatric condition that can make it difficult to form lasting relationships and show affection. It's often caused by early childhood experiences like neglect, maltreatment, or lack of emotional bonding with a primary caregiver. RAD can have lasting effects into adolescent and adulthood if left untreated, which it has been for Natalia Grace, okay? A lot of adoptive children that we are seeing that are coming from places like Russia and the Ukraine, okay, are often diagnosed with RAD. They are sexually act out. They have behavioral problems. This is a known thing. I have friends of mine, okay, that have been diagnosed with RAD. It is a condition that you have to live with for the rest of your life. So we're now blaming, okay, in a docudrama, without even acknowledging that information, okay? If they come out with the 8th episode and acknowledges, that's fine. There's 2 episodes already out where they are making Natalia Grace look like a 7-year-old played by a 27-year-old, okay? We don't, in any other show in the entire world, can you please pick a show where a 7-year-old child, okay, would be played by a 27-year-old woman? The only thing they have in common is dwarfism, all right? Which even furthers the stigma of the casting director that was on this, okay? You have a 27-year-old woman, almost 30-year-old woman, playing a 7-year-old child, playing into the manipulation that they believe that this 7-year-old child had. The fact that this 7-year-old child was so manipulative and so calculated to do all these things, right? Okay. But they don't talk about the RAD. So we know, watching it, that Natalia Grace has been diagnosed psychiatrically with RAD. She has reactive attachment disorder. It means that people with RAD have a hard time developing relationships. They're fearful of relationships. They're fearful of breaking bonds or having bonds with people. And they act out. They act out in many different ways, okay? In adulthood and in childhood. So a lot of what you're seeing in the documentaries, a lot of what you're seeing in this docudrama could easily be explained by the mental health diagnosis of RAD, which is actually something that a lot of people that are adoptees that are coming from other countries to the United States are diagnosed with. Any mental health professional could tell you this. But apparently they don't think that that's enough. What they would rather do is paint a negative picture of an abuse victim, okay, with a mental health diagnosis and allude to the fact that she was having a sexual relationship with her adoptive father and blame it on her. Like, this is how disgusting this show is. I hope we understand the full grasp of how disgusting this show is. I am so put off by this show. I'm so put off by it. I think everybody associated with it should be absolutely ashamed of themselves. The fact that statements are not coming out about this is beyond me. And I know this is a very passionate response, but I'm very passionate about this case. I feel very bad for Natalia Grace, you know? When we live in a world where we are talking about mental health diagnoses and understanding people and victim blaming and victim shaming and looking deep into that, the fact that Natalia Grace cannot even move without having to explain her actions when she was a child, I don't even remember a lot from when I was 5 to 7 years old, let alone that be held against me until I was almost like in my mid-20s. I can't even imagine. And yet she's having to answer for things that she had no control over. The way that this 30-year-old actress talks as Natalia Grace in this show is not how Natalia Grace spoke at all in the documentaries. They have footage of her when they first adopted her, okay? She speaks so seductively towards her father in this daddy tone, this childish tone. Natalia Grace did not have that tone. They have footage of her, not just documentary footage of her. They have footage of her that they took around the house. She didn't speak that way at all in the documentary. None of the footage is how she speaks. They show footage of her, like this is their creative fictional license they took, right? Where she's like talking between the parents and then she looks at the mom and she like gets this smirk. A 7-year-old would have the capacity to do that, which means that the writers, the producers, and the directors are again questioning the re-aging of Natalia Grace, which has already been proven at this point. Right? So why we're revisiting this to re-stigmatize and re-exploit this victim is disgusting to me. It's absolutely disgusting to me. Like I said, they couldn't even get the specialized shoes correctly, right? They show her in felt shoes that have a button on it. She couldn't even walk in those shoes. Natalia Grace has spoken like extensively about how she has to walk, how painful it is, why she has to have a walker, the shoes. She's talked about that. All you have to do is watch documentaries. The writers didn't even watch documentaries to get any of this right. Or they didn't care to get it right. And if they didn't care to get it right, what that means is they're sensationalizing the story of Natalia Grace. I saw people writing online like, ooh, is this like The Orphan? The horror movie, The Orphan. No, it's not like the horror movie, The Orphan. It's a true story about a young girl that was brought over to the United States, okay, and was put in one adoptive home who gave her up because they couldn't handle her, all right? Gave her to another family, the Barnetts, that had her living in her own apartment by the time that she was 8 years old, all right? Then moved into another family, the Manses, in Lafayette. She was living in her own home in Lafayette, Indiana. Then moved in with the Manses, who exploited her for money. That came out in the third part of the documentary. And now she's living with the DePauls. And she is a young 22-year-old, 23-year-old, I believe at this point, with a lot of psychiatric diagnoses that are easily explained because she has lived in 4 different homes, all right? If I showed you a picture of a young lady or a young man that was 22 years old and I said they had been in 8 to 10 foster care homes, all right, moved here from another country, never knew their biological parents, were abused in those homes, and were adopted and readopted over and over and over again, didn't have physical surgeries, didn't get the medical attention that they needed to get, didn't get the mental health treatment, we would feel sorry for that person, right? We would be like, oh my God, we would feel sorry for that child. We would feel sorry for that young adult. But Natalia Grace gets no grace. Why? It can be nothing because of her, except for her dwarfism, that people look at her differently. Oh, she acts this way, she acts that way. Of course she does. She has reactive attachment disorder. She's been rehomed multiple times. Okay? She's never had any attachments with any human beings before the Manses. And then she found out that they were exploiting her for money. Why wouldn't she act this way? I think it's a simple explanation with anybody that has any kind of sympathy or empathy inside their entire body, that we wouldn't blame even a 22-year-old of this, you know? Even a 30-year-old we wouldn't blame of this, but we blame Natalia Grace, right? So the show can't get anything right. And then they have this actress playing her, which, whatever, she's doing her part, I guess, but she is 7 years, she's 27 years old at the time that she's filming herself playing a 7-year-old, okay? Now, we knock 35-year-olds that are playing high school kids. I can remember in 90210, that one person that played Andrea or whatever her name, it came out later that she was like playing an 18-year-old and she was like 25, okay? And people had issues with that at that time. That Andrea was playing a high school student that was 17 years old that at the time was like 25. But we think it's appropriate, anybody thinks it's appropriate that a 27-year-old woman is playing a 7-year-old child, okay? Or are we playing into the fact that the producers, the writers, and the directors, and the actors do not believe the story of Natalia Grace, okay? The re-aging of her, which her parents did to get rid of her. And so it's re-abusing the victim. The reason they re-aged her was to get rid of her, all right? Because if she was of age, they weren't responsible for her anymore, all right? When it's been proven that her age is not what the Barnetts re-aged her at. So the show is re-traumatizing this victim, all right? And believing the story of the abusers. It's just baffling to me because in what world would we ever watch a show, or Hulu would ever put out a show, where we would be okay with the abusers being sainted? Christine Barnett is sainted in this television show. It's disgusting. So, anyway, this alone about this actress that plays her, it plays into the stigma and the misrepresentation of Natalia Grace. She doesn't speak anything like Natalia Grace. She doesn't move like Natalia Grace. It's like a manic version of Natalia Grace. It's weird, okay? They have villainized Natalia once again. She was 7 years old. Then they sexualize indirectly her relationship. They may lead to more of it later. They sexualize her relationship with Michael Barnett, her adoptive father. Now, this is important because there's a couple of scenes where they do this, okay? There's a part when she comes in the room with the knife, and okay, so they show the scene with the bed. First of all, the bed that they had at the time is a lot higher than the bed that they use in the docudrama, in the show, okay? Also, Natalia Grace has explained that she couldn't even reach the top of the bed, let alone stab them in their toes. She came out and said almost that exact quote. She goes, I couldn't even reach the bottom of the mattress standing with a knife. I couldn't even grasp a knife because she has such difficulty grasping things with her hands, okay? Which is a result of her physical disabilities. So we're further stigmatizing and being ableist by saying that, again, she was standing at the end of the bed, threatening her adoptive parents with a knife that she couldn't even grip onto, okay? Because of her physical disabilities. Then she makes some comment to Christine Barnett and says something about, it's not time for bed yet. Basically insinuating that her dad does it. There's like 3 incidences within the first 2 episodes where they kind of hint at this sexual relationship, which has been brought up in the documentaries, okay? But then what you're doing is, well, we know that her age at the time was that she was 7 years old. What the docudrama is doing is that they are victim blaming a 7-year-old child for any allegations or any sexual misconduct that occurred in that. And we're blaming the 7-year-old child for that, right? Indirectly. Baffling to me. Baffling. Absolutely baffling. The abuse that Natalia Grace went through is very similar to me to Ruby Franke, and Christine Barnett is saying it in a docudrama. It's baffling to me. It's absolutely baffling to me. The sexual allegations have been, they have been denied by Natalia. They've been denied by Michael Barnett. The documentary even goes on to show that Christine Barnett tried to set Natalia up with another person that had dwarfism that was an adult at the time that Natalia Grace would have been 8 years old. They interview him heavily in the documentary, all right? So she was pimping out her child to an adult, all right? We needed to make this docudrama. Why? We needed to saint Christine Barnett, at least in 2 episodes. Why? Can somebody please explain to me why we needed to do that? Okay, so let's just think about this for a second, all right? We have a 7-year-old. We know that that's her age now, okay? By legal definition in the United States, she was a 7-year-old at the time. By medical records, dental records, which is a dentist on the record says, I told her parents this, she is 7 years old, okay? Her birth certificate, everything that they found, they interviewed her biological mother, she was 7 years old, okay? This is all evidence. This evidence is out there. So a 7-year-old is abused, re-aged, rehomed multiple times, and we think it's a good idea to further villainize and stigmatize this by further abusing her, by insinuating that a 7-year-old was attempting to murder and be sexual with family members, all right? We think that's a good idea, Hulu, right? To the production team, the people that are putting this docudrama out. Or are you hoping that you'll get bad reviews because it'll make your viewings go higher and you'll make more money off of this and you don't really give a shit, okay, about any kind of victims. You just want to sensationalize the story to make more money off of it and have the ratings go high. You don't really care about the life of Natalia Grace. And that's the really sad thing is, before the DePauls, nobody really gave a shit about Natalia Grace, okay? That's the really sad thing about this. And they saint Christine Barnett. Even Christine Barnett, who has, they show heavily in there her son that is autistic. and all this kind of stuff. Even their portrayal of autism in this docudrama is so baffling to me. The way they portray it. I mean, it is so cringe. This show is so embarrassing and so cringe to watch. I mean, oh my God. It's unbelievable to me, you know? I mean, it's just like they make a mockery of their son's autism in the show. I mean, if I were him watching it, I would be so pissed. So pissed. The cast should be ashamed. The writer and the director should be ashamed. You all owe Natalia Grace a huge apology. You do. She deserves better and her story deserves better. It makes me sad. It makes me sad. You know, I said at the beginning of this that I was going to continue to watch it because I wanted to see, I do want to see how they're going to cover it. When I watch a trailer for the end of the rest of the season, they show like Natalia sitting down and going, let's get into this. I want to see if they continue to portray Christine Barnett in a positive light because it's interesting. Because Christine Barnett has apparently made a statement on Facebook and said there is nothing true about this documentary, but this documentary almost seems like Christine Barnett is working with the producers or has talked to the producers and the writer. It seems so like it shines. I mean, it makes Michael Barnett, first of all, the guy that plays Michael Barnett is like 15 years older than him. And so it doesn't really fit. And he doesn't really, I mean, the quirkiness of Michael Barnett, you can kind of see a little bit, but not too much. But the woman that plays, first of all, they are kind to Christine Barnett, okay, by having Olivia Pompey play her, okay, they are kind to her. But to highlight it as, I mean, they're not talking about the pictures that were taken with the lingerie or her trying to set Natalia Grace to do this. I mean, if that's going to come out, I want to see it. Because at this point, they are sainting this woman. And if they are sainting this woman, I want to understand why. Is she working with them or are they going to show the real thing? Because right now what they're playing it up to be is that Natalia Grace is too much to handle and Christine Barnett is having a mental breakdown and that's why she becomes abusive. But that's still not good enough for me. So anyway, let me know what you thought about it in the comment section below. I love you guys, and I will see you tomorrow. Bye.